Would you like to draw the human eye? Would you like to draw some fungi, perhaps from space? Would you like to sketch out some pencils and pens? Some stickmen playing tennis? Or doing anything really? Would you like to draw a scary meat-eating plant? A pretty flower? How about a tree? Would you like to draw a UFO? Perhaps flying over a crater-filled landscape for dramatic effect? Or maybe just the weird alien dude inside? Would you like to draw a revolver? An old guy with some glasses? A cup of coffee? A top hat? Or perhaps just a single ant going about its business?
Well, of course you would. And so, you're gonna need to draw some ovals. But ovals are kinda hard to do, so they're an obvious choice for some lovely drawing exercises.
And with that, hello good people and welcome to the drawing journey and another video in the daily drawing exercises series. Today we're talking about ovals, which is a very common and very important shape. It is said that you can draw the whole world using 4 basic shapes: a box, a sphere, a cone and a cylinder. And the oval is an integrated part of 2 of these 4 shapes, the cone and the cylinder. One of the first things I like to do to practice ovals is simply to whip out a piece of paper and start hammering out some ovals. Not thinking too much about it, just get them down, much like what I'm doing right now. This works almost like a warm-up. It gets a nice flow going, but it's not very accurate. If I want to take it a step further and be a bit more accurate with my ovals, I might use this approach. Here I am very loosely and lightly sketching out an oval, making sure to draw from my shoulder to get that nice flow going, and then afterwards I'm going in to clean it up with some more detailed line work. This approach can produce some very nice and clean ovals and might be the way I'd go about it if I was doing an actual drawing and not just exercises. But since I am doing exercises today, I am just going to fill up a page of these, of course in some varying sizes, and I suggest that you do the same. Now of course you are gonna need a little bit of practice in order to get that initial shape relatively smooth, and in the next example I'll give you a few pointers on how you might go about that. So if you're struggling with getting that initial oval shape down on paper in a relatively smooth manner, I can absolutely relate to that. This is something that requires a bit of practice, and as with many of the other basic shapes, it's kind of an ongoing process for me. And one of my favorite ways to practice this is to use a little bit of time actually constructing an oval, using some guidelines as you see me doing here. So I have drawn a rectangle and I have drawn a cross in the middle of that, and I'm using those guidelines to construct an oval. And then I will use that oval as a guide to practice the actual motion of drawing the oval. So I'll be building up the muscle memory of actually drawing the oval by going over the oval several times, and then afterwards I will try to replicate the motion on a different part of the paper. So you'll see me doing that in a minute. But just to reiterate the process, let me just draw one more. I am drawing a rectangle, and then I am finding the middle of the sides, and I am drawing a cross going through the rectangle, and the combination of the rectangle and the cross gives me a good frame on which to build, to construct my oval. Now just on a side note, you can see that I'm not using any rulers or any compasses or anything like that, and that is purely for personal preference. I am not a big fan of drawings that are too accurate, if you will. I don't know, hyperrealism is not really my thing. I prefer the organic feel that you get with these small inaccuracies that will inevitably arise when you're drawing everything freehand. But that's just me. If you want to use a ruler, please by all means go ahead and do so. Do what works for you. And here I am doing what I mentioned before, going over the oval several times, sort of getting the motion into my hand, and then going to an empty part of the paper and trying to replicate it. Simple, a little more difficult than it looks, very effective. That is at least my experience. So I hope you'll try this, I hope you'll do it a bunch of times, and I hope as a result you'll watch your oval drawing skills exploding. You can also do the same exact exercise minus the rectangle. This ups the ante a little bit, makes it a little bit more difficult, but the principle is exactly the same. You're drawing some guidelines, in this case just a cross, and you're using those guidelines to construct an oval. Once you have an oval that is relatively decent, you use that as your guideline to practice the motion of drawing an oval. and then you repeat that motion on an empty part of the paper. And you can do it as many times as you like. I usually just fill up the page. Another important aspect of drawing ovals, if you want to use them for actual drawings, is to get them to fit in the right place and get them the right size. So here is a couple of exercises that will help you practice that. Now, I am going to start out with a couple of straight lines. No harm in sneaking in a little line practice. And then what I'll do is simply draw ovals in the spaces between the lines that I've drawn. And obviously the goal is to get them to fit as snugly between the lines as possible. Perhaps just touching the lines, but not going over the lines. And since I drew the straight lines diagonally in different angles, the space between the lines vary, and thus the resulting ovals also vary. And doing some smaller ovals for a slightly different feel now that we're at it is not a bad idea. And here's another exercise for accuracy. The principle is very similar to the previous one. You draw two straight lines and then you draw the ovals in between those lines, trying to fit them as precisely as possible. Ideally, the ends of the ovals just touching the lines but not crossing them. Second version, same exact thing, except this time the ovals that I draw will be gradually larger as I move down across the paper. So I'm starting out very small and very thin at the top, and then the ovals will be gradually larger. Another one, kind of same but different, but this time I'm drawing inside a funnel, and I'm also going to add a center line. And again, the purpose is to make the ovals larger as I move from one end towards the other. And at this point you might be asking yourself, what's the point of doing all these exercises that seem to train the same aspects of oval drawing? And to that I can only reply that I personally find that doing these exercises in different versions help me to develop my sense of space, my sense of construction, my sense of visual identification of what's going on behind the lines, so to speak. So that when I'm doing an actual drawing, this helps me to sort of get mentally and visually all the way around the person or object or whatever it is that I'm trying to represent on paper. So I hope that makes sense to you. And if it doesn't, you just stick with your favorite. Another exercise for accuracy, but with a different focus. Here I am placing my ovals on top of my line and trying to get them to be as centered as possible, so that hopefully the center of the oval is as close to the line as possible. And an easy way to check the result is just to fold the paper right on top of the line and then hold it up against the light so that you can see how each half of the oval matches up against the other half of the oval. And just to demonstrate how easy it is to see the difference, I'm just gonna throw a very crooked oval on here. And here you can clearly see how these two halves do not match up at all. Okay guys, so here we are at the last actual exercise for this video. And this is where we are going to move into the territory of something that resembles a little bit more actual drawing of things, objects, rather than just drawing ovals for the sake of ovals, right? So what I'm doing here is just drawing basically random organic shapes. As you can see, I'm starting out with this sausage type thing. And then I am adding ovals as contour lines. And then I'm just adding some line weight to part of the oval to sort of give a clearer indication of which side is supposed to be in front, and thereby adding a more three-dimensional feel to the sausage at hand here. Now this also applies the previously mentioned principle of drawing the initial oval very loosely and lightly, focusing on the free flow that comes from drawing from the shoulder, and then coming in afterwards to add the details, which in this case is just the line weight on the front side of the object. Now, if you're uncertain how to draw from the shoulder, I just happen to have a video explaining just that, which of course I suggest that you go watch. I'll leave the link in the description. I don't mean to be shamelessly self-promoting here, that's not the intention at all. I just really think that it's very, very useful. I'm trying to pass on the information that I wish was available to me, and I really do think that drawing from the shoulder is super beneficial in many, many ways. And it's just the best way to get that free flow and that nice organic feel into your drawings. So I would highly suggest that you put some effort into that, whether it be my video or something else. Anyway, I'll leave a link in the description and you can go check it out if you like. And I think I got room for one more. And while I am finishing that, let me just leave you with a small piece of information regarding terminology. A lot of times you will hear the terms ellipse and oval get thrown around as if they are the same thing, and that is not the case. An oval is just a broad term that covers any oval shape, like what I'm doing here, just any random oval shape, whereas an ellipse has a specific mathematical formula to it. So you could say that all ellipses are ovals, but not all ovals are ellipses. Just wanted to clear that up, cause yeah, I'm geeky like that. What are you gonna do? Okay, so now that we've ventured down the path of closing in on some actual drawings, let's do some actual drawings. We'll start out with some simple items that can help us bring it all together. So the first thing we're gonna do is just a couple of simple rings. These are a great way to practice. They involve two ovals, and the challenge is to place them correctly so that they line up neatly, allowing us to bring them together to one piece. And you might want to pay attention to the ends and the corners, if you will, where the two ovals meet and are combined. You want to keep everything nice and smooth and rounded. Sharp edges are not your friend in this case. This becomes a lot clearer if you draw one viewed a little bit more from the top, so based on some bigger ovals, like what I'm doing here. In this case, you can really see how all the edges are rounded. No sharp ends. Another great way to practice is to draw a simple bowl. This has a similar challenge to it in that the ovals have to be placed correctly for the sides and the top and the bottom to be symmetrical. But being as the top and the bottom are not the same size, obviously, the ovals are also going to be different sizes, and this adds an extra small challenge. A globe presents a nice opportunity to practice some ovals as well. Now, of course, this involves a circle, which is a whole other can of worms and something that we will attack in a different video. But do your best, and otherwise just use a compass for now. What we want to do is actually use the ovals to transform a circle into a sphere. And this can be a bit of a brain teaser, presenting a nice challenge, forcing you to really think in 3D. Okay, so once I have my circle, I'm going to draw a center line, and then I'm going to place 2 dots offset a little bit, and these will represent the north and the south pole, if you will, of my globe to be. And here comes the fun part. The ovals should represent lines that are going all the way around the sphere, the globe. And of course, since the poles are offset a little bit, so will the ovals be, and this is what makes this a little bit of a brain teaser. This might sound awfully confusing as I'm trying to explain everything that's going on. I think just following along with the drawing is probably gonna make a lot more sense to you than my yapping. Okay, so I hope you get the idea. You can clearly see the ovals that I drew, and you can also see that I added some line weight to half of each oval. This hopefully helps to illustrate which is the front side of the globe, or the sphere if you will. And you can of course add almost as many ovals as you want to. Here's a couple of different ones I drew just to illustrate some of the possibilities. So I wanted to end off today's video with an actual drawing, and it had to be something that involved a bunch of ovals, since that is obviously the topic for today. And after looking around for a bit, I came up with the idea of drawing this syringe, because I thought that could be kind of a cool looking drawing. And also I am a nurse by trade, so this kind of hits close to home for me. So I'm gonna try and do that, and we'll see how that turns out. Now, as you probably guessed by now, I am a big fan of drawing exercises. Now, I think they're super beneficial, and I actually think they can be a lot of fun. Just depends on how you approach them. Now, there's a couple of reasons why I'm a big fan of drawing exercises. The most obvious one, obviously, being that they allow me to improve my drawing skills, and also be kind of specific about which skills I want to work on a particular day, but also because they allow me to get some drawing done on a daily basis. The reason for that is I'm a pretty busy guy. I have 2 children, I have a full-time job, I also play music, and I do a bunch of different things, you know, so my time is pretty stretched and pretty limited. So if I was to draw only whenever I felt inspired and I had the inclination to sit down and spend, you know, a couple of hours coming up with a cool concept, kind of looking into it, sketching it a little bit, and sort of drawing something cool, something good looking, then that would be very, very rare, and I would hardly get any drawing done, and I would get nowhere developing my drawing. So by using exercises, drawing some boxes or some ovals or some squares or whatever, I can sit down for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes here and there and just work on some fun stuff. And sometimes I get inspired and I keep going and it becomes something, and other times it's just scribbles and doodles, and that's all good. The point is I want to keep drawing, and that way I can keep honing my skills and just keep getting better and better. And so when the rare moment rolls around and I'm actually able to sit down and spend some time on a drawing, I am not completely lost. Now, having said all that, I also think it's super important to actually apply some of these things that we practice in our exercises to actual drawings. Because if we only practice exercises, we're going to get good at drawing ovals and boxes and spheres and what have you, but we're not going to be able to apply it. We're not going to be able to visualize and imagine and construct something to make it pop off the page. Those skills, at least in my opinion, take actual drawings to develop. As I'm finishing up the syringe here, I'm just going to quickly mention that this was obviously not a tutorial. It's just a fun drawing and I'm running through it pretty quickly. But if you would like me to make it into a tutorial, I would be happy to do so. Just let me know in the comments. Other than that, I think we're going to just quickly count the ovals that I am using in this, and I think I'm counting around 10. Do you agree? Let me know.
Okay, so here we are at the end. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you found this video helpful. I hope that you picked up a few tips and tricks and that your oval drawing skills will explode in the coming weeks as a direct result. Now, of course, I've shown you a few ways of practicing ovals, but obviously there are many others. So use the ones that you prefer or be creative and come up with your own. Do what works for you. But most importantly, remember to draw actual drawings. So in the end, I just want to say, if you found this video helpful, if you got something out of it, please go ahead and like it. And of course, subscribe to my channel. It's good karma. And I will see you in the next video. Remember that drawing is a skill, so let's learn it.
Oh, and hey, remember, early morning, coffee, oval practice. Yes, that's right. You can practice ovals anytime. Taking the kids to the park. Oval practice, that's right. Anytime, I said. Bored at work? You guessed it. Oval practice, of course. Changing a diaper in the grass? Probably not the best time. And also, remember to play with your kids, will you?